Greetings, residents. Welcome back to our Front Porch Chat and series of weekly discussions that we have. And today, I'm very fortunate to have here as our guest participant, our good friend, longtime friend, Assemblyman Kieran Lalor. He represents the 105th District, but is a longtime native of this area, and his family will forgive you for this, living over in Fishkill. East Fishkill. But nevertheless, Kieran has been a strong supporter of the region, but also our town activities. So I thought that, it would be a good chance, to chat a little bit, share some of your ideas there, talk about some of the things that are really most on our mind. But, for those of you who aren't aware, Kieran is a really devoted, family, person, has a great family. But also is a veteran, decorated, awarded veteran from the Iraq War, but also has made it a point as part of your efforts, both in the state and also federally, to get more recognition, help for the veterans, and therefore we're working with him on a number of initiatives, which we can talk a little bit about in a few minutes. And I think that just generally, really here to show what we are doing at both the local and state level and other areas, to help. But before I talk about some of the things, I think both of us take this off are really saddened by a lot of the disturbing news that we read. And of course, I think what we're seeing is that a lot of good people out there. And I think in this town and the area. We've had a very positive, proactive, I think, response to Mr. Floyd's murder, and that this, I hope, is part of even coming out of COVID, more of a healing process. And I know that all of our representatives and leaders are strongly dedicated to that. And I think that you, in particular, have been most concerned. So, I think, during this whole, what we're talking about here is also how we can use some of the town assets and people and resources to help, unite us. A country divided cannot stand. A community divided.
I heard that before. I think
cannot
so.
stand. I think somebody more famous than I've said that. So, anyway, we want to, I think, talk a little bit about some items of importance, to us. And the first thing is that. We're just a summary, we're going to be talking a little bit about COVID-19, which still is on everybody's mind, maybe a little bit different way than it was a few weeks ago, but also reopening of Dutchess County businesses, and particularly what you've been doing to help at the state level, because there's been a lot there in coordination with us down here. And then also support for our veterans and Carnwath farms where we are today. So in talking about the COVID-19 update, certainly a big difference that 3 months have made, to us, and I think that our people have been very supportive of the efforts. But just curious, during those 3 months, what did you and your family do? What new things did you learn and discover?
It's interesting, and my family did this, and so many of my neighbors. Go for a walk. We never went for a walk before, the whole family just walking around, but March it started to get nice, and April, and everybody's just going for walks, riding bikes. There's actually a bike shortage in the country right now because
absolutely.
My kids rode their bikes a little bit, but they had outgrown them a little bit, and we started looking to buy bikes that were a little bigger for them, and they were hard to come by because everybody's getting out and enjoying the great outdoors. And we saw neighbors. We really, we saw and waved to them before, but now everybody's walking around. You can stay on the other side of the street and still have a nice conversation.
In fact, I see more people waving and saying hi than they ever did before. As you go by, and as I drive by or walk by, but particularly drive by, roll down the window and say hi, and they respond.
And there was, and I think there still is, and you mentioned the protests and the horrible situation from Minnesota, but there still is this sense of we're all in this together. If you are a billionaire or you are a pauper, you have to worry about this. You had to worry about this pandemic and how it was going to impact you either medically or financially. So in a way, that that's one of the positive side effects of this. And the other thing, I have 4 kids, you mentioned. Right now they're 13, 12, 11, and 9. So they do a million activities. So having all 6 of us, me and my wife and the 4 kids, home for dinner every night for weeks on end, that never happened because we were always going different directions. So that was a nice thing. And to have have everybody at the table every single night.
Well, I imagine it brings the children closer, particularly with those ages. You know, some of them would
In
be
theory,
more,
you would think that.
You know,
They do. They do.
No, I would think that this will have a lasting effect on them. You know, in that sense, I think, right? The families that are closer, you know, together, I hope will
be. For a while, I was saying, it's just us now. You know, everybody has to get along. Don't be fighting over your toys. It's just us for the next foreseeable future. So we're going to make this work, and you know, you can share the toys and share the bikes and everything.
Well, speaking of the foreseeable future, I think first, you know, I think everyone in our community and all around have done a heroic job in stopping the spread and getting the county to where we are, right? And with continued downward decline, I think even as far as the number of active cases, a major drop off. We had in Wappinger reached a peak of about 163. I think as of yesterday, the figures that Marcus released was 43. And so we're continuing to see that drop off. But, you know, I think the important thing is it's not over. You know, what do you see going forward, and what do we need to do to try to, well, to make sure we stay open, right?
Right.
You know, how do you look at it?
You're right. The month or two ago, the predictions for the country and for New York State much more dire. So we did do a great job. It's like almost everything in life and in policy making, you have to strike the balance between safety and, you know, the need for people to earn income. And I think all along the thinking shouldn't have been essential versus non-essential because that's so nebulous that you know. If it's the thing that feeds my family, it's essential. You know, if it's a thing that makes my life whole, it's essential. So I thought the thinking and the paradigm all along should have been, and going forward should be as we reopen. Can it be done safely? Can you run your church services safely? Can you run your business safely? If you can, then do it. And if the government decides at the state or local level, you know what, it's not safe, then do something. It should have been the burden on the state to prove that you're not being safe, rather than you have to prove that you can do things safely. When that essential, non-essential thing came out, a lot of things my office did was field calls from people and say, I'm not sure, I'm in a gray area, am I essential, am I not essential? And we called, and to the state's credit and to the governor's office credit, you know, some of our calls were heated. We said, hey, this is essential, this has to be done, there's no reason it can't be done. And they did change things, although it took some time and it was stressful for people. But I think the thing has to think too. It can be done safely. You figured out a way, because our businesses are so innovative. I just read today that one of the restaurants in the town of Wappinger, in the village of Wappinger, is going to have some rooftop seating now because they have to. They can have outdoor seating in a couple of days,
but you can't have indoor seating. So the outdoor look at the different methods, and that's what
it proves the innovation. We were all talking before. One of the restaurants in town had an outdoor movie, and kind of like the old Happy Days kind of bring the food to your car. Great, they're making money, gives people something to do. It was safe. We're innovators in this country, and our businesses in particular are innovators. We need to unleash that in a way that maintains our prosperity and keeps us safe, and that's starting to happen.
And in fact, in that regard, and you know, as Kieran mentioned, and all of us, you know, I've been working closely, you know, with Kieran, with you know, Marcus Molinaro, the county executive, and we've gotten a lot of response. Actually, I think this county and our efforts have gotten a lot more positive feedback from Albany than maybe some other, you know, counties. And for the town, you know, we pushed, you know, to keep our, you know, boat ramp open, right? Especially as striper, you know, fishing was coming, you know, to keep the parks. On Monday night, our board, in fact, related to restaurants, you know, we've been pushing, and Marcus, you know, pushed very hard, and I think has gotten it a lot because of the efforts that we've had to get restaurants opened before phase 3. You know, and so Monday night at the board, one of the things that I've asked, you know, the county executive to do, and he will be doing, and others have asked as well, is coming out with an order that allows us to, under the emergency, you know, put on hold our code sections relating to outdoor dining. And so on Monday night at our board meeting, we'll be talking about how do we relax that, because Marcus is expected, he's told me, you know, and us, that he expects to come out with his order on Monday afternoon, you know, with the June 9th target date, but that still means that we have to go through the permitting process. But what we want to do, Kieran, is to waive a lot of the permit aspects of it. Certainly, we're going to waive the permit fees as well for outdoor restaurants. So those restaurants that have the ability with their own basically dedicated parking lot or section of it, like John Lawrence and Farm to Table or Odyssey, restaurant, even Double O and so forth. The more difficult challenge is how do we deal with restaurants, cafes that are in strip malls and things like that, because then we have public safety, fire, and other concerns. But what are your thoughts about the reopening process that we're doing, and what can restaurants do? I think in order to reopen, any business needs to have a business plan and needs to have an affirmation that they have that for health and safety.
Right.
But when you look at this public health, what is your suggestion to our restaurants to make sure that they open and stay open? Then we can move quickly, hopefully in phase 3, to inside their building restauranting with, again, restrictions. So what are your thoughts on that and the reopening process generally?
So one of the real challenges is you're not going to be able to pack people in like we did 3 months ago and at all times prior to that. So you're going to have to spread out the tables, but you lose revenue when you do that. So one idea I heard, I wish I could say this was my idea, but it's a pretty great idea a friend of mine had. If you keep the tables there, but you don't seat the tables, and then you sell advertising on the table, or you give away advertising on the table. So let's say you have a restaurant and every other table is now empty, but you keep the table there, and then you put a display advertising for a catering hall or some other business, or you could do it in a charitable way. You let a local charity advertise on that table. So then you're using the space. In some cases, you're getting the revenue out of the space, and you're kind of making the best of a tough situation. And those are the kind of ideas that I think we're going to have to come up with to keep our restaurants open. It's a huge part of our economy here. It's a huge part of our culture here.
Employment. Very important. One of the things that I've discussed, I'm still waiting to hear from Albany on this through Marcus, is that we propose, the disadvantage that a town has is that we usually don't have a town center, unlike Wappinger Falls. Well, Wappinger Falls, at least a major portion of it's in the town, but the town of Wappinger doesn't have a town center, or the town of Fishkill doesn't have one. But with this park, it was my idea, and we're waiting to get some response, is okay, why can't we have, 1 or 2 food trucks come by, do the proper social distancing, maybe even only one person serving. Of course, takeout can come here, and then we can have people sitting out on the lawns. We can get tables. Since now we don't have some of our recreation parks, and we'll talk about shortly, Mart's Field. We can move a number of those tables from Mart's over to here, and then do something like that. So it was one of my ideas to get a food truck, right? How is that going to hurt? But
people
we've been
love
told
food trucks.
No, but maybe you can help us in Albany.
I would definitely like
do
to work
that,
on
right?
That. Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me why, because they are socially distant and they'll wear a mask. They're willing to do anything.
If you read the latest research on this, outdoor, very safe. Very few transmissions outdoors, especially if you keep your distance.
Yeah, and even the surfaces.
Stay on your side over there.
Yeah, no, that's what we're doing. But we also wiped down the chairs before you came, so Joey did that, and the railing and everything else. So it's some of those innovations, but I think still most important is that we follow the public health guidelines, or there could be a relapse, right? A second wave, social distancing, masks, when you can't social distance, sanitizing, washing your hands. And I think
don't touch your face. I have an issue on my face right now, but I'm going not touching it.
Or do it with some Kleenex or something like that, or cloth, or take the hat and rub it there. But I think the important thing is that we are removing. However, there is this big push to try to. Well, people are tired of wearing masks, right? Tired of doing some things, and I think again, in the outdoors and where there's social distancing, you can do that, and then common courtesy, etiquette. Don't sneeze or cough in somebody's face, right? Those things seem to be natural. So I think we do that, and I do believe that overall in the state we've done a great job. The county has done an outstanding job and responsiveness, but the governor too, has made great results. We haven't been happy sometimes, but so now to me the key is back to what you said. Can we get more our churches open with social distancing, common sense? Can we do a number of other things? Team sports is going to be a challenge, for a while, particularly with young kids. And
I'm a 9-year-old baseball coach. I can't wait to get back out there.
And we made our decision in the town to not hold our summer camp this year, just because we couldn't figure out a way to follow the public health guidelines and to protect our youth and staff, people. So. Well, let's turn to
one other thing.
Yeah,
you just reminded me of one of the issues with the parks and the camps that
Right.
you probably came across was a liability issue
Yes,
too, and insurance.
absolutely.
I think that's one of the big things the state has to do going forward. Make sure businesses know if they follow the guidelines, they're not reckless, they're not negligent,
Right.
but somebody catches
Right.
COVID in their establishment, they're not going
Well,
to be sued
Right.
into oblivion.
Well, in fact,
and out
I
of
put
business.
in a proposal, and there is a federal bill that's pending, that does help, remove some of the degree of risk. And I think in the state, since the governor has proposed to have a plan, your health, your business plan based on the health issues, have an affirmation, it seems to me that if we could get a bill through the assembly that would allow that under certain, direction and so forth. Because when we looked at it from the town point of view, take summer camp, we asked the insurance carriers, are you covered? Oh yes, you're covered. But then we're lawyers, right? As you peel the layers of the onion back, they said, well, yeah, but we can deny, the claim, and if you didn't do certain things, and so forth and so on. So we, particularly for our businesses, we need to help them do that. So if there's a way to get something in through the assembly, I think it would be a tremendous priority, and that would be great help for Wappinger and the rest of your district, for sure. So as a takeaway from here, if you can continue to push that. I'm not sure where the federal bill is, but something similar probably could be done, to help at least for this period of the next few months as we're reopening until we see where it's going. But shifting a little bit, but is also very important because our veterans have perhaps been, and our seniors, suffering the most from COVID-19 and being shut down, basically locked down at home, and they already, so many of them that have different disabilities, from the various wars, but it becomes more knowledgeable in time. So what the town has been trying to do, in addition to our 20-some monuments programs and so forth, is to make a lasting daily impression. And this is where, certainly like, some help on brainstorming and maybe even at the Albany. But particularly, for example, we have been working on, and Kevin Hawthorne, our deputy supervisor, has the idea that the board is basically approved and authorized for what we call Veterans Memorial Highway, Wappinger Memorial Highway down Route 9. And I think the Senator Serino's office had some discussions, but if there's a way that you can, help make that happen, I think the board's already, hasn't it, Joey, had a resolution that approved that, and so we'd like to see that get expedited because then we can start doing that to kick off some other things. So that's one item.
So a little update on that.
Yeah.
Senator Serino and I have advanced that bill, and just this week on the Assembly side, the Assembly minority asked for, so we had submitted the bill, but they didn't ask for any backup.
Right.
And this week they asked for it, and I sent that resolution from 2019 asking for it, because they want to know, does the town want this? Is this something that has value? Which of course it does, but they want to see something on paper. So I asked Deputy Supervisor Hathorn, he sent it to me, and we got that to them. So I think there is progress being made. If there are local bills, because it's kind of an unusual period, typically all local bills would probably get dealt with by mid-June, but this is kind of an unusual year. But if local bills are dealt with this year, I'm very hopeful that we can get that passed.
Good. Well, that's great, and we appreciate your collective effort.
And let me mention your deputy supervisor there, because back in May, local World War II veteran, Carlo Cantarello, lived not that far from here, actually. Lived here for a long time. His son was actually my Pop Warner football coach back 700 years ago when I played Pop Warner at Wappingers Junior High. That's where the field was. But he passed away. He was in his 90s. And they couldn't have a regular funeral, and he asked if we could bring some people out. So I called Mr. Hathorn, and he helped me and others, Boy Scouts, American Legion, townspeople, elected officials, and we lined the streets, and they were so touched, and the family was really moved by what the town and the village and the local people did.
Kevin talked with me about it. I would have come out, but since I'm in the higher risk category, my wife wanted me to stay at home, so I had to listen to that ball. But it was a great,
always listen to your wife.
Great outpouring, and when I don't, I do get into trouble. That's for sure. But that was a great result. So, some things along those lines Kevin's been pursuing. Also, we talked about Martz Field Captain Daniel Martz, and I really appreciated your Memorial Day comments. They're really focused on the town community, on a parent and hero.
Don't tell them in East Fishkill, but I'm a Wappinger guy.
I know you're born here and so forth, but no, I mean you've been very good in supporting. But for those of you that may not have remembered this, but Captain Martz was the first Dutchess County soldier that died in the Vietnam War.
Correct.
And had been, I think it was a young age of 37 or so at the time. But we have this memorial site that you're very familiar with over at Martz Field, named after him. And that has become in a state of disrepair. So what we want to do is actually, and Kevin's been taking the charge on that, take that from its current site, which is really off of the beaten path. Maybe at one time it was the entrance and so forth, and move it, but also repair it and make it even more of a monument, than it has been. So if there's anything you can do, Kieran, in the assembly, and maybe some funding or something like that, we're all strapped for funding, and certainly towns are at this time, but we really appreciate it. But maybe some comments, again, with respect to Martz, but other, brave people that have sacrificed for our, community.
Yeah.
And your other thoughts.
Well, we're here in early June, and of course, one of the most important days in history, and I would argue the most important day of the 20th century was June 6th,
That's right.
1944, D-Day, when the Allies really took back the continent of Europe and changed the shape of history and changed the rest of the 20th century and what we have now in the 21st century. And we have, I think every World War II veteran at this point, even those who snuck in early, Mr. Cantarello, who passed away, I think he enlisted at 17. You hear stories about, in those days, soldiers who lied about their age so they could get in. But they're almost all in their 90s. We're losing them all the time. But we still have dozens that we see in our community. They participate in our D-Day ceremony every year. We're not having an in-person ceremony this year, but we are celebrating it digitally in the 21st century way. And I think it's important to remember them, what they did. But the amazing thing to me is these men who are in their 90s and women in their 90s who fought 60, 70, 80 years ago, they're still serving us because we talked about, all the unrest and the tumultuous world that we live in. The one thing everybody agrees on, pretty much, 99.999% of Americans is they appreciate our veterans. They appreciate what they do. So these super seniors, they're still serving us because they bring us together around their service, around all that's good about the country, and remind us, what we're all doing here and what we have to do to pass
and still
that forward.
Sacrificing their lives as well. Remember the horrific situation in Massachusetts, Holyoke, that nursing home
the
where
hospital,
over 100 vets, passed away as a result of COVID-19. So we're continuing to express that outpouring of feeling, and also trying to find ways to make their lives a little bit more livable even here in the town. One of the projects, well, there's two projects. One getting back to the deceased veterans. I have Joey, and Joey's, as you know, is our town historian as well. But he's doing a complete inventory of all of the cemetery plots within the town. And actually, the town owns some, but also there's a number of private ones. But also doing a listing of who are the veterans going way back. That are in those, plots. And also Tommy Mosh of Mama's Towing has also been very helpful in doing that and cleaning up some of these places that have gotten overgrown. So that's one project as we do an inventory of our cemeteries and who all's there. I think Joey's going through a process of listing everybody that from historical records who's buried there and identifying our veterans. So I think when we get to that point, what we're thinking of is some sort of, again, veterans, cemetery trail. But so we can lay honor, and then we can choose a particular cemetery each one of the events, whether it's a D-Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. We can do something along those lines. So that's one of them. But the more contemporary thing is we have this major program we've started. Joey's helped draw out rough hand on maps, CPL, which is our engineering firm, to have a major program over the next number of years to build sidewalks in our town, starting with covering all Route 9, then going out east and west, and then some of our hamlets. And one of the main impetus for it is that during election campaigning, and then since then, in the past, a number of veterans said, we don't have any way to get even to Hannaford's. There's not, when we're talking about the town, right, or going from some of the nursing homes, we don't even have a crosswalk. Matt in the village has done a pretty good job, and now we're talking with Matt about interconnecting so that, in fact, that center concrete medium that goes down a portion of Route 9 to the bridge, people don't have to walk along that. Anymore.
That's,
in fact, we
that's
found,
a dangerous situation
in
for
fact,
anybody.
we've put in, and I think now the state is going to do it, but at first, as you know, they're going to be rebuilding the bridge, and that bridge span is actually all in the town of Wappinger. Right. And so they had no plans for a sidewalk going across it. They said, what are you going to do? And so now they said they're going to put a sidewalk, but they don't have the funding. They're going to allow for the new bridge span to have a sidewalk, but they don't have the funding to put it in there. So that's something that you can help with. But the overall project.
Now, who's that, State DOT?
Yeah, State DOT is responsible for that. But we'll share with you some of that information, because I think particularly as we look at making Route 9 safer, as you know, there's a number of spots where people unfortunately get hit and don't survive that. So that's one of the things, along with beautification, but consistent with also the Memorial Highway. We want to make it something that they can do. We have actually, don't we have them here, Joey? A number of kiosks and for bus stations or for along the way. We have them actually sitting here that the county had provided us before. But until we can get some sidewalks in places, then it doesn't make sense. So I think anything along those lines that will help us and the greater community. Would be much.
Yeah, I'd love to work on that.
Yeah, we'd love to work on that. So we'll share with you information on. Get it to you. Joey can get some of that so you can get up to speed on that. But it's exciting because the town and the townspeople, as you said, we don't know of anybody that doesn't appreciate our veterans. We have a number of seniors that are also now, less able to get around. So we're trying to help them, and not just the veteran portion of it. So,
I mean, we're an aging population, so that stuff is going to be needed.
And similarly, this beautiful, plot of land, 99.7 acres, we are, looking at ways to try to enhance that, so that also our seniors, we have a big space, the whole first floor over in the, Reese Cultural Center. That, by the way, is where the Sports Museum at Dutchess County is located. We have a kitchen area. Altogether, Joey, there must be about 5,000 square feet. Per floor, but in that basement we have a huge kitchen that needs a little loving touch. I was just watching a TV program, I think it was SWAT, where they bought an old van and they really polished it up, made it look like to serve, I think, Guatemalan food. Well, that's the same thing here. A little bit of loving care. We now have water to the building, but we need to get water inside the building for the restrooms. We have two large areas that can be recreation, space. One was the old cafeteria, which has some pillars in the middle, but also we have a big space, almost 1,700, 1,800 square feet, that we want to make senior center, because our current senior center, last time you were there, I think we took a look at it, just a small room, and for social distancing, it can't work.
Good point.
It can't work. So any help, right now, I think Joey and I tabulated that to get that up to speed, that building, including some heating, water, and so forth, is about $150,000. So if you hear of any, funding sources, I've also talked with, Congressman Maloney and his staff, about that as well, or maybe getting some earmark funds. So, that's one of a number of things that we want to do here in Carnwath, and to get it to be more known. We have the last thing I just mentioned, and then any thoughts that you have on our parks or what we can do here. But right behind us, it's too wet to go up there today, we have over an acre that we've designated as a victory garden, and we fenced it, it's secured, security, and we plowed it once to break the sod, but now we need to till it to get it going. But we're thinking that it's all organic. It can be used to help feed, needy organizations. We also then, if we got the kitchen up, then we can use that to actually prepare food that could be used to help with people in situations like we've been going through. And also, as I said, Congressman Maloney also likes that idea. How can we repurpose that building that can be used in the case of disasters events like what we're just facing, along with these grounds. So any thoughts that you might have, or any other ideas that can be to help us. But what are your thoughts generally as to how we can, any innovation, brainstorm, ideas that you might have? Please let me know.
Yeah, this is kind of a diamond in the rough here.
Yes.
You've made a lot of progress, but there's real potential here for an amazing park. And I was saying earlier, I think a lot of people might not even know about this park who live in the town.
Right.
So that would be some publicity to let people know the opportunities that are here. Because if you have people interested in the park, it's easier to get support that you need to do the improvements that you want to do.
And we've been putting together some promotional material, maybe even through a district mailer, or at least in your district office and elsewhere. You can
I know how to get the word out.
Show that, figure out how to get the word out along with the veterans thing. So, well, look, I've taken a lot of your time.
Two lawyers talking.
Two lawyers
like
talking.
10 hours.
I mean, we could go forever. But any last comments you'd like to make to the town, to our residents, before we close up?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great town. I grew up here. My parents live here. I'm going to go head over and check on them.
Yeah.
After I leave here, and the town itself is beautiful. There's a lot of opportunities, but the people make the town of Wappinger a great town. We saw that with that funeral for a World War II veteran, and we see that all the time in this town. And I'm here to help. If I can help you, just reach out, phone or email, and I'll definitely give you a hand. Whether the town itself or the people in the town.
Thank you. Yeah. So thanks again.
My
we
pleasure.
won't shake.
My
We'll do
pleasure.
a virtual.
Yes.
But we really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for watching. Please stay safe, remain well, and have a great day. Thank you.